News now. Dive teams say they found more parts of that plane that went down Monday. John Scruggs with the sheriff's office dive team said that they have a key area that they're searching, and they've deployed high-tech camera equipment that was brought in to help with the search. It can dive autonomously without human assistance. There are still human divers on the case, although they can only be submerged for about an hour due to the cold temperatures. The Lookout Mountain Drug Task Force announced a massive bust conducted in Rossville. Reports say 15 people were arrested and charged with 32 different drug charges related to possession of marijuana, meth, coke, pills, and guns. Investigation is still ongoing. A Ray County girl, just 10 months old, was booked into Erlanger Children's Hospital here in Chattanooga, suffering from severe bruising and a fractured arm. Detective Rocky Potter in Ray County told WTBC that James Earl Alexander was arrested, charged with aggravated child abuse. Russell Stroud, Chattanooga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
It's been lots of sunshine, but still quite chilly out there for your afternoon. Highs struggling to reach the lower 40s. Tonight, clear, cold again overnight, and frosty by morning, lows near 25. For Friday, mostly sunny, back into the upper 40s with clouds and areas of rain moving in later Saturday. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthries, home of the original Golden Fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthries. It's always good. And I'm Storm Team 12, Chief Meteorologist Patrick Report.
The Radio 92.7.
Space, a final frontier.
Whether it's a man cave, she shed her office, L&K Buildings and Trailer Sales has your space. The perfect portable building just for you. L&K Buildings and Trailer Sales is a premier building authorized dealer. You tired of paying high storage fees, lack of security, and not having easy access to your stuff? Then L&K has the building just for you. Or if you're looking for a mini home or the perfect hunting cabin, L&K has the building that will convert perfectly. Free delivery up to 50 miles. No credit checks and low monthly payments. Call L&K today at 706-858-0077. 706-858-0077. On Facebook, search L&K Buildings and Trailer Sales. 3532 Lakeview Drive, Rossville, Georgia. L&K's featured storage unit this month is a center cabin 12x32, featuring 15% off. L&K Buildings and Trailer Sales. Call 706-858-0077.
I'm the dude. You know, that or his dudeness, Duder, or El Duderino, if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Chattanooga Radio 92.7.
Good morning, beautiful people here in the city of Chattanooga. It's your girl, Marie Mott with the Marie Mott Show. Y'all know what it is. I'm taking it from the streets to City Hall to the mayor's office. Can't leave out the police department. From the valley low to the mountaintop, giving you guys a bird's eye view to what's going on here in the city of Chattanooga. Good morning, everyone. Wake up. Good morning. Good morning. It's Thursday. That means that we have almost made it through another week here in the city of Chattanooga. There's been a lot going on. Yesterday's show was crazy. A lot of people talking, and often people won't do their due diligence, and they swear that people are just looking to tear down people, and it's not that. As an activist, but even just that, not as an activist, as a concerned citizen, I do recognize that the city of Chattanooga has a lot of concentrated problems. And I think besides the fact enough people don't have access to the information about how concentrated our problems here in the city of Chattanooga, I often understand that people would rather comment on things than dig beyond the surface, right? And so as anybody who's an activist that is against status quo is a disruptor of the system. And they are not a friend of status quo. And I am not a friend of status quo. And the people who have come before me, like the man that we're going to celebrate in the next coming weeks, Dr. Martin Luther King, they didn't assassinate him because he was a loving, caring man. They assassinated Dr. King and Medgar Evers and Malcolm X and many others. They assassinated these individuals because they were disruptors of the status quo. And I think that sometimes in my city, we just don't dig beyond the surface. If we're not dealing with politics, then we are not dealing with poverty. Because if you don't even first understand that politics is what creates poverty, you're already off base. Everything is political. And I continue to preach that because I think for a lot of people, they take pride in saying, I don't know anything about politics, or I have nothing to do with politics. And that may be why we don't have a civics understanding. We don't know who's responsible for what. Because what's the point in saying that you support a political leader if you don't understand politics? If you cannot petition them for what they're responsible for, and at the same time, if you cannot hold their feet to the fire for what they're responsible for, then as a citizen, you are not doing your just duty by your neighborhood. And so it's not enough for me to say that I'm in the community, and it's not enough for me to say that I'm in East Chattanooga. I understand that council persons, as well as the mayor, as well as county commission, as well as our county mayor, are responsible for resources. And in particular, I understand that if I look in my neighborhood, and if I look in the south side that is still underdeveloped, if I look in the west side, which is still underdeveloped and blighted, and all I see are these interconnected webs of poverty, you know, maybe I'm just a different Chattanoogan. I don't want to keep handing out food in the west side, and it's not because I don't want to serve the people there, but I want them to have a grocery store there so we don't have to go back every week, every other week to hand out food, because it's a human right to have food in your neighborhood. Am I wrong? Am I asking too much? I don't want to keep handing out food in the west side bi-weekly, because not only can we have a grocery store in the west side, but if we had a grocery store, we might be able to employ some of the impoverished people in the west side. In the south side, where we have lead in the soil, and nobody has talked about it. Nobody's talked about it. The Chattanooga Times Free Press has reported it, but nobody has really talked about it. It's a human right for people to be able to exist in a neighborhood. And if there are if there's something that could have the potential to be a public health crisis, guess who's responsible for cleaning that up? Your government officials. And so in 2019, folks, if you choose to be miseducated, it is, and that's why I wanted to talk about education, because it's very, very important. And I think one of the reasons why I'm frustrated about a lot of the things that's going on is because I've been fortunate enough to have a decent education. For learning how to read opens up your eyes to critical thinking. And maybe people don't know how to think critically because they don't have the basic skills in education. And social media allows people to talk, and people talk enough. But the problem is, it's not just that people are talking, but it's that they get up and they have platforms. And Jamel Hill talked about this when she talked about Kanye West. It's nothing worse than having a person that doesn't read, that's loud and ignorant and has a platform and is wrong. Reading is so important. And in doing my homework for this show today, last week, I came across an article, two articles that were quite alarming to a young millennial such as myself. Because if we're about to have all of this pomp and circumstance for Dr. Martin Luther King, and we're not talking about here in the city of Chattanooga, to my discovery, only 8% of the students at Brainerd High School, which is my mother's alma mater, are reading at proficiency level. We have a problem, Chattanooga. And the problem is so severe. The problem is so large. The problem is so all-encompassing that if we don't talk about what we see that's going on, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And I'm of the mindset where I don't want to put Band-Aids on bullet wound situations. I want to solve problems indefinitely. My grandmother told me as a child that there is a solution and an answer for every problem. But what does it take to get to solutions? Not just suggestions, but critical thinking. You can't think critically if you can't even read. And so I'm going to start this off, 423-800-8949 if you want to call and talk to me. This is a quote from Bell Hooks, who I've been tearing through a lot of her books here lately. I always tell my students that Malcolm X came both to his spiritual and to his consciousness as a thinker when he had the solitude to read. Unfortunately, tragically, like so many young Black males, that solitude only came in prison. Last year, we almost had a state takeover of our schools. And several of our schools here have been put under the banner of Opportunity Zone schools. And if you were to go look, there is an article that was published August the 19th, 2018, a deeper look into Hamilton County TVAAS scores. What you see here is a very, very, very alarming problem. That student performance remains low in math, particularly in Algebra 1. District administrators say that most of the schools are earning 1 out of 5 as far as composite scores. 25 schools earned a composite score of 5. 26 schools earned a composite score of 1. 1/3 of the high schools earned a composite score of 1. 11 elementary schools earned a composite score of 5. 10 earned a composite score of 3. And 15 earned a composite score of 1. And a question that I have for you as the listener is, how are students making it all the way to middle school and high school and they do not know how to read and do math? Anybody want to call in and answer that question for me? I would greatly appreciate it. But how are children, this is very important, how are children making it to middle school and high school and they do not know how to read and they do not know how to do math? Now, in particular, coming up as the child of a chemist, my mother is a chemist by training. She graduated from Chattanooga's public school, 1986, graduated as a teenage mom, had my brother before she graduated. And the schools were so up to par at that time to where my mother had a full ride scholarship to go to Spelman and go to Notre Dame. She chose to stay here and go to Chattanooga State and then to UTC. But we used to put out students that there's a reason why there's this large group, in particular, like at Archer Knob. I know a lot of retired teachers that go to Archer Knob Baptist Church, retired principals, CPAs, a lot of the first in the city that did a lot of things. There used to be this large, very decent quality education that, even though it was under city schools at the time, to where people would graduate from inner city schools here in the city of Chattanooga, but that they could compete. They could go to HBCUs and compete. They could come back and be an asset to their city after going to college. But how did we get, because we thought that the first thing is, and we're going to have to go back and touch on this at a later date, but we thought the consolidation of our school system was going to improve our education, and it has not done that for the inner city. But I'm questioning, how is it that we continue to go down a deeper slope to where our children are making it to middle school and high school and they cannot even read? Shout out to Moms for Social Justice. The reason that I became privy to this information was because Moms for Social Justice built a library in Brainerd High School. They were volunteering. And they realized, and this is even a large problem as well, going into the schools, that Brainerd High School, as they recall, didn't have books past the 90s. They didn't have recent textbooks. They didn't have recent books to read. And so these moms decided to take it upon themselves to raise money and build a library in Brainerd, at Brainerd High School. But one of the questions that I even asked the mothers and the women that participate in the community of Moms for Social Justice is, while I'm so appreciative of them putting books in the children's hand, if we're not addressing a very large problem that our children are illiterate. Now, and this is not just even the inner city schools. Even some of the schools in our rural communities are experiencing the same exacerbated problems. As a matter of fact, the majority of students across this state are going to graduate from high school and they are not going to be college ready. And an even larger question that I have to ask community is that if these children can't get into college because they can't read, you do understand there's tests for everything. So you got to take a test if you want to go, if you want to get your ACT or your SAT scores, that's a test. You got to take a composite test if you want to go to college. That's a test. So if kids aren't making it, if they're not going to make it to college or they're not going to be college ready, and if they can't read, how are they going to put together resumes, fill out job applications if they can't read? So where are these children going to go? And why is this such a large problem, Marie? Do you believe this is political? Do you believe that this is the parents failing the children? Folks may fight me on this and may disagree. I don't think that the parents are failing the children. You're required by law to send your children to public school. And the moment you don't, you can be arrested for that. You have to send your children to some form of school. Either you can cough up the money and pay for them to go to private school, or otherwise, if you don't have those type of funds, then where they got to go? They got to go to public school. So by law, if the law is requiring you to hand over your children for 8 to 10 hours a day, then it's the responsibility of government officials to choose the curriculum, to choose the importance of what type of education that you have. Are you going to exist in a state that cares more about testing, or do they really care about comprehensive knowledge? Are they desperately just trying to rush through the semesters, shoving information down children's throats? Or do children have the ability to legitimately work through problems and understand? Is there this conscientious care that is going on in their education? Let's look at the quality of teachers. Does everybody who teach have a teaching degree, meaning they went to school to learn how to teach students? Or are we just allowing anybody with a college degree to teach our students? So what is the requirement even for people to become teachers? Where are those teachers coming from? Do the teachers mirror the makeup of the student body? Meaning that if 80% of the student body is Hispanic, does that mean that 80% of the teachers are Hispanic? Or if 80% of the children are African American, is there that same level of African American teachers? Is there a balance of teachers between male and female? Questions. You see this? When I say I'm blessed, I know I'm blessed. I know without a shadow of a doubt, I'm blessed. My life has been blessed. My upbringing was blessed. It was never perfect, but I'm blessed. And why does Marie care? Because Marie sees problems. And there are solutions for the problems, but it requires us to do some very painful things. And the things that I don't understand, again, if we have a large scale problem of schools that are not up to par, and we know this, Hamilton County Department of Education knows this, what are we doing to combat the problems that we have? And how are we bringing in community to do this? And so it's bigger than just, quote unquote, teaching children how to read. I can say for a fact that as an African-American person, and in particular, as an African-American young lady who came up in the public education system, school for me on a lot of fronts was completely boring. Number one, because I would open up a textbook and I didn't see myself in there with the exception of slavery. And so, first of all, if we're not even teaching culture, and it's not just for me, it's even for people who are outside my community, they need to know my contribution to this country. If I don't see myself in the curriculum, I'm not going to be tied to it, because understand, education is the coat rack, but culture is the hook. You can borrow that. Education is the coat rack, but culture is the hook. And so what the problem is not that it's just half of a coat rack. The problem is it's no hook, because we don't see the beauty of our culture in the curriculum. I don't see that for our Hispanic children. I don't see that for anybody who may be of Native American heritage. But also, if I walk into a classroom after classroom after classroom after classroom, and there's nobody from my neighborhood or nobody who's gone through a similar circumstance in life as I have, and I don't. So not only do I not see myself in the curriculum, but also I don't see myself teaching. Problems, there are solutions. The question is, do we want to really fix the problem? And in particular, when we look at the county commission and our sheriff, which is in bed with Core Civic CCA Silverdale, would it be any surprise that our children are miseducated and we have contracts with prisons? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Talk to the people.
Hey, Marie, it's Warren. I've only got a second to talk about this. I had to step out of work. But, you know, you're talking about what do we need to do. You know, there are organizations in Chattanooga like Unite Ed who they spend a lot of time in the community, like doing surveys with students and parents. And, you know, they put together this plan and they presented it to the board, but it was shot down. So, you know, there are people working on this and people who are looking and asking questions. And, you know, I think one of the biggest problems in Chattanooga is the inequity in the school system, you know, where some schools are filled to the brim with just passionate students, and teachers have to float between classrooms in between periods. They don't have their own classes. And, you know, I don't know that I can offer any solution to that. But, you know, there are some people who are like investigating this, but we're just not listening.
Thank you so much for your comments. I'm finding that to be a common thing. People present solutions all the time, but are our officials listening to the voice of the people?
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga police make an arrest in a shooting case from Tuesday night. Reports say a person was hit multiple times by bullets at the intersection of Ivy and Kilmer Street. Cops arrested 22-year-old Connor Bell in the shooting case. Just a block away, at nearly the same time, a woman was hit by a car in a hit and run. That woman, who has not been identified, is in the hospital with serious injuries. In Ray County, a man was charged with aggravated child abuse after detectives say he beat a 10-month-old girl, leaving her bruised all over her body. She's taken to Erlanger Children's Hospital in Chattanooga. Detective Rocky Potter tells WTVC James Earl Alexander was arrested and charged with aggravated child abuse. And the TBI is trying to track down a 16-year-old who went missing out of Gallatin, last seen in the town of Gallatin back December 13th. Dylan Ray Reginald is listed as an endangered child. Reports say he ran away from the Volunteer Youth Academy. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Hey folks, Jeff Stiles here, talk radio host and infamous technophobe, but I got to tell you, this Facebook Live that Nougat Radio does, it makes sense to me. It really does. Now, we're at 92.7 on the FM dial, but really where you need to go is NougatRadio.com and just do the streaming audio, 8 to 10 a.m. The first hour is mostly just me just throwing commentary in on top of the news. The second hour is me frustrating and irritating you beyond all belief. NougatRadio.com. Don't miss it every weekday.
Nougat Radio 92.7.
Listen up, y'all. This is Ben Phillips with Home Rate Mortgage right here in Chattanooga. I'm in the business of saving people money. And if you want to save money, you need to pick that cell phone up right now. 805-9100. I just helped a doctor with a $400,000 mortgage. It closed in just 24 days. We lowered his rate by over 4%, saving his family $394,000 in mortgage interest payments. And get this, several lenders told this doctor he was stuck in his loan. What was the difference? He called the mortgage doctors at Home Rate Mortgage right here in Chattanooga, 805-9100. What would 10 minutes on the phone with Home Rate Mortgage do for you? Get that cell phone out right now, 805-9100. Let us prescribe you a better solution for you to reach your financial goals. Just give us a call right now, 805-9100, or online at homeratemortgage.com.
Turn a house into a home rate mortgage.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga Roofing Contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
The Mad Philly Sandwich Shop on Shallowford Road across from Mountain View Service Center presents How to Speak Philadelphian and its Southern translation.
Hey, forget about it.
Hey, don't worry.
Just shut up and eat it.
Now go eat what's on your plate.
Hey, Rose, did you get the shopping cart?
Hey, Rose, get the buggy.
The Mad Philly Sandwich Shop, just off Route 153 on Shallowford Road across from Mountain View Service Center.
It's a good Philly, y'all.
Nougat Radio, Chattanooga weather.
We've got lots of sunshine, but still quite chilly out there for your afternoon. Highs struggling to reach the lower 40s. Tonight, clear, cold again overnight, and frosty by morning, lows near 25. For Friday, mostly sunny, back into the upper 40s with clouds and areas of rain moving in later Saturday. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthries, home of the original Golden Fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthries. It's always good. And I'm Storm Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Moore.
Nougat Radio 92.7.
Talking about it today. Why? My city. With so much to be going on, I don't think enough people are taking it seriously. And I think a lot of people are just without hope. Without hope. That all we can accept is defeat, or all we can accept is failure. I have friends that work as teachers. I have friends that work in social services. I have friends that I know people who work from the administrative side of what's going on with the Hamilton County Department of Education. I know people who sit on the county commission. To me, this is a problem. And like I said, again, the article's name was A Deeper Look at Hamilton County's TVAAS Scores. Where are the gaps and where does the district go from here? Looking at basic literacy. And before we got into the second half of a segment, a caller called in and said that people are submitting things. And this is the thing, this is a big problem that I have, is that there are people in the community. There are advocates, there are activists, there are parents, there are people from the nonprofit sector that are submitting things, that are encouraging things. But if we're not making systemic changes, I hate to say this, but a lot of what we're doing is somewhat temporary. And again, the large question is, how are children making it to high school and they cannot read and do math unless teachers understand that they can't read and understand that they can't do math and pass them anyways. And is that not a disservice to our children? Are we too concerned? I don't understand where this obsession came with test scores. To me, test scores don't really tell intelligence anyways, but test scores can prove in a lot of instances where children are. And so in particular, when I say math, because math was something that I struggled with. I did great in every other subject. Math was not really my strong suit. And I'm grateful that I had a mother who did math. That did math, like college level math. Shout out to my mama. Lord knows she helped me a lot with math. But pretty much when you get to pre-algebra, math is a fundamental subject, meaning that you can't do algebra 1 if you haven't mastered pre-algebra. You can't do algebra 2 if you haven't mastered algebra 1. You can't do calculus if you haven't mastered. Math is a fundamental subject. You cannot. It is impossible. And I mean this. It is impossible for you to skip levels of math if you have not mastered the basics. Because, of course, how many parents out there have struggled to help their children with some algebra homework? I know I hear parents in the spirit saying, me? Me? A young lady who is a friend of the family was struggling, even science, as you go through high school. When you get to chemistry is math heavy. So in some instances, you can't even do science without math. So my mom, this young lady who's a friend of the family at the time, she was going to a private school here in the city of Chattanooga. And she was struggling with understanding chemistry. And part of the problem was, and even for me, one of the things that I struggled with understanding math and understanding chemistry was my teacher always taught shortcuts. And I'm going somewhere with this. Follow me. My math teacher, my algebra 1 teacher always taught shortcuts. And then I got to algebra 2, barely squeaking out of algebra 1. And I'm being transparent with like a C. I got to algebra 2 and I was lost in the sauce. And so I would go home and I would almost legitimately be in tears. I got an A here. I got an A there. I might have a B+ here. And I get the math and I'm just like D, C-. And that hurt my feelings. And so I would come home and I would sit down and I would do math with my mother. And so I would be trying to do the shortcuts. And she's like, what are you doing? And so I would say, Mom, I'm trying to work out the problem. I'm trying to work out the problem like this. And she's like, who taught you this? And so my mom would have to do understand what it takes then to try to catch your child up, even if you're a diligent parent. And let's be real, when's the last time some of us have even done algebra? It's crucial. You got to have this. You're going to have to take some math when you go to college. But let's be real. Unless you're like a chemist or a scientist or you do math every single day, math is not going to be something with the exception of like basic math, like change and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Bouncing your checkbook. You're not doing hardcore math every single day. And so if you can't even remember, because it's been 10, 15, 20 years since you did algebra 1, right? You got to remember those foundational basics. My mother, and it would frustrate me, but I would always understand. My mama would go through, she would get out a piece of, I got to laugh about this now. But my mama would get out a piece of paper and she would turn it sideways because she's left-handed. And she would go through the long way of doing math. And you know what that takes? Time. Let me say that again. when you really want to work out a math problem and do it step by step, it takes time. Time. What don't you have a lot of in the school system? Time. Will you take a test? Is it not timed? Yes, it's time. So, mercy me. So, shortcuts. And I remember my mom going to a parent-teacher conference and confronting my math teacher about teaching shortcuts. And one of the things that he acknowledged was he didn't know how to do math the long way. All he knew how to do was shortcuts. And so every single day, just about until I made it out of algebra 2, until I squeaked out of algebra 2, it was mama after working 18. Well, my mom never worked an 8-hour day. After working 10, 11 hours at work, my mom would have to come home and help me with my math homework, because otherwise I would fail or I would squeak out with a D. And that's real. And when I say I'm fortunate, I'm so fortunate because the average parent is not doing algebra 1 every day. And so if your children or your child is struggling with math, and then the teachers don't know how to teach the math, and the school system is only cares about the test results, but not the fact that in order to teach math, it takes time, and you got to do it the long way because it's a foundational subject. And what about the fact that, if we be honest, we don't even have enough teachers, and we have classrooms often where it's 30 students in one classroom, which is far too many. And they got you convinced that the problem is the parents. I'm not seeing that at all. What I'm seeing is that the systems in place are doing us a disservice. And people are not taking accountability for the failure that's going on here. Good morning. Talk to the people.
I love this subject. Marie, we're putting a Band-Aid over a mortal wound. This is being done purposely, and it started in the 60s to dumb down American children. This is not done by accident.
I know.
I go into school and say, if I ran business like you guys ran this, I'd be out of business. Why do you have to we keep redoing math? Here's the problem: is government schools are socialism. It'll never work. It will always fail. I made this argument since I was a kid to my parents. I said, why can I choose where to get my clothes, where to get my food, but no school choice? It's total propaganda. It's total indoctrination. It's to keep most people down and controlled. Government schools are the most dangerous institutions in America. Not Chattanooga City Council, not Donald Trump, not the federal government, not the military. Your public school is the most dangerous institution in our republic, and they all need to be abolished today and need to be replaced with 30, 40, 50 private schools buying for the money that they steal with your property taxes. Companies should be begging us to send our children to their independent school, because if they do that, they get money from the government. And we need to be able to sit there every year in June and say, why should I send my kid to yours? There's 30 other schools in this county I can send them to, because the government has already stolen $500 million from property owners, and they're going to redistribute that wealth to one of the 30 or 40 or 50 independent schools. Like there's many restaurants, there should be many schools. Why do we have a choice in restaurants? Why do we have people standing in line to go to restaurants when they should be standing in line to try to get their children into one of 40, 50, 100 different schools? Because the purpose is indoctrination. They control the left, they control the right, they control the dynamics, they control the agenda. Children are 100% brainwashed in these government institutions. They're extremely dangerous and need to be abolished today. They need to close everyone down, and their Bolshevik buildings look like communist indoctrination centers. They're schools.
Oh, man. Thank you, Mike Steele, man. I appreciate you. You're borderline right, though. I mean, our schools here in the inner city are falling apart, right? They're falling apart. Let's not lie. And the fact of the matter is that one of the reasons that I'm talking about this is because our city council, as well as our county commission, did tax increases, continues to hike people's taxes at the county and the city level. And where is this money going? Anybody can answer that question for me. That's the $1 million question of the day. Where is all of our tax dollars going? And Christopher Dahl, you're right. Is that not theft of services? Again, the basic principles of this republic is no taxation without representation, meaning that the real reason that we have people to represent us, representatives, at every form of government is to ensure that though they tax us to create these systems, that we have representation of our taxes in our neighborhoods. And that is even a good question, Mike Steele, is that what is difficult about school choice? People, I've seen I've seen school board members shame parents for taking them to charter schools. And I'm not too big a fan of charter schools for my own personal reasons, but that's neither here nor there. You shame a parent for going to a charter school, but the public school system is failing overall, overwhelmingly. Why would you shame a parent for exiting the system, for almost selling their kidney to send their child to private school or taking them to a charter school because they're not getting the education that they need in the public school system? And we have millions and millions and millions. Why do we continue to have millions and millions and millions of dollars behind stuff that doesn't work? I'm just asking questions. And again, the only reason that I can even get this far in life is, number one, because I can read, which is an avenue to thinking critically, which makes you ask questions, which would then give you the capacity to even try to change something. But if most people don't even make it that far, because I mean, I read an article that showed that the overwhelming population in places like Mississippi, the average adult is reading at a 6th grade level. I came from the insurance industry where we had to send out determination letters, meaning that whether or not your service was approved or disapproved, we had to send out approval letters or determination letters at a 6th grade level. Now, I know some of the medical jargon can be quite perplexing, but the overall language had to be in a 6th grade level. (423-800-8949). And why did I read that Bell Hooks quote? Because when she was talking about Malcolm X, he came to his awakening and his consciousness in a place where often Black males can only have solitude, in prison. And why is it a lot of times when we have people in the inner city or even people in abject poverty that go to jail, or well, not jail, go to prison for a long period of time, come back to the community, and they're usually a different person? I'm not talking about those guys who maybe go for 1169, they're going for a year. I'm talking about those guys that do hard time because they actually have an opportunity to sit down and read. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Talk to the people.
Well, I'd like to say that it seems like with the school system, you know, people have been led astray. You know, we've been led to believe, like you stated, that it's the parents' issues and things like that. And it seems like a lot of these issues started when they consolidated the school system and the county took all the schools over and started getting rid of all the community-based schools and putting them into larger facilities. I think that we need to go back to community-based schools so that way, you know, not only can people from the community be able to have access to the schools more easier, but parents in the community can be more involved in those schools as well. And I think what we're seeing with today's schools is nothing but a prison pipeline system that's been set up. And it's basically, if you don't go and work at these factories that you're being trained to work for through these schools, you'll end up in the jail system. And then you'll be right back at that factory that you didn't even want to work at in the first place.
Thank you so much, Christopher Dahl, for your comments, bro. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it, and keep up the great work.
Yes, sir. And so this is why when I spoke at City Council on Tuesday, one of the things that I asked for East Chattanooga is Harriet Tubman. The residents would like the site to be mixed use. We have the capacity as a city and even as a county to offer TIFs and pilots that would encourage businesses, grocery stores, and anything of that sort to come and actually open up business. And one of the things that I said is that I came, before I left corporate America at around this time last year, I had worked at Cigna and worked my way from a temp representative all the way to a senior audit specialist. One of the things that I witnessed was, number one, I had never made that type of money in my life. And I had worked at Volkswagen through a supplier. And before then I had worked as a younger person. I had worked in a warehouse at a company one day when we showed up one day and we were fired before we clocked in. Everybody, because they had sold the company from out up under us. Like, people just don't understand. I've seen a lot, been through a lot, and working in the insurance agency, like I made the most money than I ever made before. I'm talking about real good money. But the truth of the matter is what sort of industries do we even have in the city of Chattanooga besides Volkswagen / those businesses that are suppliers of it? Amazon is a large one. And the insurance agencies are pretty large here. What else is there? Where are those competitive jobs that we have in the city of Chattanooga? Where are these children going if they can't read and do math? Is this why we have a school to prison pipeline? What are the solutions? It's not just one. Maybe we need to completely walk away from schools overall and start having community schools and private schools, such as what Marcus Klein has done with the Freedom Home Academy institutions that are not only in Chicago, Atlanta, Florida, and Detroit. This man owns several schools in several states, in several communities, and has had parents flock from public schools to come to his private school. And he has caught children up in math and reading to where the majority of his students can read and do math and science, often 3 to 4 grade levels above their age. So the capacity, I know the capacity is there for children. The question is, do they see themselves in the curriculum? Do they have the resources? Does the teacher body reflect them? Do they have updated access to information? Is the system doing what it's supposed to do? And with folks always asking for our votes and our support, are they doing what is necessary to make sure that the future of the city of Chattanooga, which are those bright-eyed children, that they're going to be able to make it? Y'all know what it is. Marie Mott with the Marie Mott Show. If no one has taken the time today to tell you that they love you, I love you. Guess what? There's nothing you can do about it. See you guys back tomorrow on the Marie Mott Show.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news. Now,
dive teams say they found more parts of that plane that went down Monday. John Scruggs with the Sheriff's Office dive team said that they have a key area that they're searching, and they've deployed high-tech camera equipment that was brought in to help with the search. It can dive autonomously without human assistance. There are still human divers on the case, although they can only be submerged for about an hour due to the cold temperatures. The Lookout Mountain Drug Task Force announced a massive bust conducted in Rossville. Reports say 15 people were arrested and charged with 32 different drug charges related to possession of marijuana, meth, coke, pills, and guns. arrests. Investigation is still ongoing. A Ray County girl, just 10 months old, was booked into Erlanger Children's Hospital here in Chattanooga, suffering from severe bruising and a fractured arm. Detective Rocky Potter in Ray County told WTBC that James Earl Alexander was arrested, charged with aggravated child abuse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM.
The first responders, these are the men and women who put themselves in harm's way for us. And here at Nooga Radio, we want to do our part to say thank you. On Nooga Radio, every Friday is First Responder Friday. We'll honor a first responder with a thank you gift from Nooga Radio's community partners. If there's a first responder you'd like us to honor, go to NoogaRadio.com and submit your nomination. First Responder Friday, sponsored by Doug Yates Towing and Recovery, the Mad Philly Sandwich Shop, New York Pizza Department, and Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
I'm always watching the Travel Channel. There was this one episode shot in the Mediterranean one night. It caught my eye. And the food, wow, definitely wanted to try some of that. Luckily, I didn't need to go halfway around the world. I found Olive Branch Mediterranean Foods right here in East Ridge. East Ridge. They were telling me how the menu's made fresh daily. It's authentic and it's so delicious. Your next